Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Thursday, October 1st, 2020. I'm Andrew Hansen, joined by Shane Caldwell, and it's the Week 4 Main Slate show. And Shane, I'm psyched because the Main Slate's been our bread and butter here, providing lineups to our members. We're 13-2 on the Main Slate across FanDuel, Draftkings, Yahoo, with hybrid lineups and GPPs. So we've dug in again here with our research. Are you ready to crush it again in Week 4?
Yeah, absolutely. We only have 12 games. It's hard to believe that it's already Week 4 in the NFL, and all of a sudden the COVID thing starts showing its ugly head a little bit here, with Tennessee having several personnel staff and players testing positive. So the Tennessee Pittsburgh game, we don't know exactly when it's going to play at this point on Thursday night as we're recording this. I'm sure they're going to figure that out. But for now, for main slate purposes, those players are out of the player pool, so we don't need to discuss that game right now. We'll focus on the main 12 games, and yeah, we've broken down and done a lot of analysis to help give everyone the best, some of the best player picks and some of our early thoughts. Things will change between now and Sunday. That's why you want to check out our future podcast that posts, Sunday night, where we give some final player picks. And obviously, you want to be able to, become a member and jump in our Discord Sunday morning, so we can help you out with final decisions, and you can have access to our full lineups we provide, which, like you said, are cashing at 86% for the main slate.
Yeah, that's right. So if you want to jump in as a member, get our lineups, just go to our website, dfscoachtalk.com, pick up the week, the month, or the annual membership, or the fall special, which takes you through the end of the year. Perfect for football players. And then what we do is we give out 3 full lineups on FanDuel, 1 for cash games, 2 for GPPs. We give out a coach's clipboard with core plays on Draftkings and pivots, so you can make your lineup, and then a Yahoo hybrid if you're playing over on Yahoo. So we'd love to have you join us. We got a great community of members, really growing and having a terrific time. And there's nothing like providing lineups to members and everybody celebrating together. So that's what we're going to keep doing here. And we're going to get right into the Week 4 main slate, so we can build some lineups. We're going to go game by game. That's what we do on the Thursday shows. And then that late Saturday night show is when we go position by position. So hit the like button and the subscribe button on YouTube, and then you'll be notified when our next NFL podcast posts. Shane, want to say a quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa for all your sports wagering needs. We have a great 125% match on your first deposit if you use the promo code CoachTalk. So thank you very much to BetUS for everything they do with us as a partner. All right, Shane, game 1 here. There are 12 games on the main slate this week, like you said, due to the postponement of the Titans and Steelers game. There are 9 1 o'clock games and 3 4 o'clock games. And just to give you an idea of some of the totals, there are 7 totals of at least 50 points on BetUS and 5 that are under 50. So that's kind of a magic number this week. Certainly we want to target the high over-under games as a general rule, but we're going to obviously look at the context of each matchup before we make our player picks. So looking at the first game on the slate, we're going to break down the Indianapolis Colts 2-1, traveling to visit the Bears, undefeated 3-0. And on BetUS, Indianapolis is actually a 2.5-point favorite. Over under only 43, though, one of the lowest on the board. So anyone here in game 1 that you're interested in rostering?
I pretty much we've been on Jonathan Taylor pretty much every week, and he's a borderline play for me this week. I haven't went full 100% in on Jonathan Taylor, but when I looked into it a little further, you're going to be able to get him at lower ownership, because when people see that he's at Chicago, that is a perceived very difficult matchup. But really, when I looked at the grades for run defense for Chicago, they're actually not that great. They're not in the elite category like a lot of people perceive them. And the matchup of the Indianapolis offensive line versus the Chicago defensive line, Indianapolis has a huge advantage there. So what I've seen when I looked up the grades and kind of seen who they matched up so far, that Chicago is not as good against the run as people think they are. which leads me to believe that Jonathan Taylor is actually a sneaky play where he's been a little chalky the last couple of weeks. He's actually more of a sneaky play. He's priced up a little bit, 7,500 on FanDuel. But so I think Jonathan Taylor is a good play because you're going to give him at lower ownership. And I think he's due to actually have a huge breakout game, like a ceiling game where he's had his consistent, pretty good floor games. I think he has the type of talent to break out for a ceiling game here. And I think that, like I said, people are not going to be on him. So that's the main guy that I'm looking at for Indianapolis. And then for Chicago, I think the main guy I'm looking at is Allen Robinson. I think that you should have a boost with Allen Robinson with Nick Foles in there now. You figure Nick Foles is a little bit more accurate passer than Trubisky, and Allen Robinson is a dominant wide receiver. He should get one-on-one matchup. I think he's going against mostly Pierre Desir. So it's just kind of a neutral matchup. Indianapolis has been great on defense. They're one of the top defenses in the league right now, and they've been good against the pass, but they haven't really played very many elite wide receivers and good passing games here. And I think Nick Foles upgrades this passing game. So that's why I'm looking at Allen Robinson as that mid-tier guy, mid-upper price guy that I think could have a good game here. And that's pretty much the extent of what I'm looking at for this game. I think, like I said, I think Jonathan Taylor's kind of sneaky here.
Yeah, I think he is too. Atlanta did have success on the ground last week against Chicago. Gurley and Hill combined for 138 yards and 2 scores. So I think that probably goes into that grade that you're talking about. And I agree. If you go with Taylor here, you get him at a lower ownership, and he's rested. They didn't need him last week, so that would be a nice GPP play.
You're right. They did sit him in the fourth quarter. I noticed that when I watched the game. That he was out of there. So yeah,
right. Yeah, easy win, and Wilkins got in there and got some carries. So on the Bears side, Foles, really great start there, coming in relief, throwing 3 touchdown passes. So he's got some good chemistry. It is a tough matchup. Foles would be a GPP play for me, but probably won't go to the Bears offense. And I do want to mention the injury to Tariq Cohen. With him out, in case you're wondering, the backup that they called up from the practice squad is Artavis Pierce. The problem is he's not available on the Draftkings main slate as of right now, Thursday evening. So we'll see if that changes. He is available on FanDuel at 4,500. So just wanted folks to be aware of that. All right, game 2 is New Orleans traveling to Detroit. Both teams 1-2, and the Saints are 4-point favorites on BetUS, over under 54, one of the biggest totals of the week. And you are our Detroit Lions man. You can find Shane on Twitter, by the way, at DET Sports Shane. He is the Detroit sportsman. You can follow me on Twitter at Language Olympic. So Shane, talk to me about this Lions group here at home, underdogs with a big over-under.
Yeah, I mean, this should be a pretty high-scoring game. Yeah, they're New Orleans 4-point favorites. This is a very interesting game. Both really good offenses here. Decent defenses. I think the Lions defense is ascending. I think they were able to contain Kyler Murray, as I talked about last week, that I thought they were going to be able to contain him. They ended up picking him off 3 times, and they dropped a 4th interception in that game. So what I've seen is the front 7, Detroit, is finally healthy. They have all their guys together. They're actually getting pressure, and that's helping the secondary out. And if the Lions get Desmond Trufant back, which it looks like they're that's going to upgrade the secondary even more. So they're finally going to be healthy. So the Lions are underrated defense here. The issue is that New Orleans has a great offensive line, obviously Hall of Fame quarterback, and they probably will be getting Michael Thomas back. Most likely it's looking like Michael Thomas will be back. I don't know if Michael Thomas is going to be 100%, but even at 80 to 90%, Michael Thomas is better than most wide receivers in the league. So I could see Michael Thomas having a pretty good game, but I don't think he's going to have a ceiling game. I think the Lions defense can contain him, but I think he still will have a decent game, but not enough to pay off an expensive price. I really think that Michael Thomas eats into Alvin Kamara's production a little bit here, and Alvin Kamara might not get this massive target upside that he had. And also I noticed in last week's game that Latavius Murray was getting most of the early down work. It's like they were protecting Kamara, and it worked beautifully, that strategy. It kept Kamara fresh so he could make those explosive plays. So in general, I'm not going to be on Alvin Kamara because there's so much like mid-tier, lower price running backs that I love and mid-tier running backs that I love that I'll get at lower ownership. Alvin Kamara is projected to be the top running back by most experts on this entire slate, and he's probably going to be the highest owned. People are going to pay up for him, but I think you can get different by fading Alvin Kamara here, because I think the Lions defense are actually better than what people give them credit for, and I don't think a lot of people know that. So that's kind of where I'm at here. I did write Alvin Kamara's down, but I just think he's a little bit too expensive, and he's relying on the passing work here. And then on the Lions side, I would say probably, the guys I like the most are Kenny Golladay. Surprisingly, Marshawn Lattimore has been pretty bad in coverage this year. Really bad coverage grade. He's been getting beat a lot. He's still a respectable corner, but I think Golladay can beat him, and Galladay's finally healthy. Stafford loves him. They usually play good together at home, and they're going to have to pass because probably will be down in this game. So I like Kenny Golladay in that mid-tier price. He's pretty cheap on DraftKings, by the way, at $6,000. I think that's a little too cheap. And then TJ Hawkinson should be in line for a good game. It's been pretty well documented that New Orleans has struggled. Remember when Darren Waller kind of went off against them?
Oh, yeah.
So they've been struggling against tight ends, and Hawkinson, I think, tends to play better with Golladay in the lineup because Golladay attracts so much attention from the safeties and the corners. So I think that they will have a lot of design plays to get Hawkinson open. And he's been very consistent, obviously, and I think he could be due for a ceiling game here. And he's still really cheap because he hasn't had that massive ceiling game. So you can buy low on Hawkinson here. And, I think he's a great tight end to play at a pretty affordable price here. And that's kind of the extent of what I'm looking at in this game. I'm not looking to really stack this game, even though it's a high over-under, because I feel like New Orleans defense is pretty tough, and I think the Lions defense, Detroit's defense, is improved, and it may not be just a lead pipe block to throw Kamara in there like people think it is.
Yeah, I agree. Let me hit on Hawkinson first. He is one of my favorite tight ends. You mentioned how much success Waller had against New Orleans, and let's not forget about last week in primetime, what the Green Bay tight ends did. They went 8 for 86 and a touchdown. Tanyan and Jay Sternberger really had success there. So I liked Hawkinson as well here. And then on the Saints side, the way to beat Detroit, it does seem like it's on the ground, and that's why Kamara is so popular here in terms of the projections of ownership. But you make a good point with Murray, his presence there, and why is he there? He's there to run the ball and pick up 4 and 5 at a time and protect Kamara long term. And so with Kamara being a little bit more expensive, I'm planning to shy away from him in my main build as well. Go for more the mid-tier. I do have some interest in Murray because I think they'll lean on him if they can. But he's up at almost 5,000 on DraftKings, so it's tough to get to either one of them because we know they are going to split the workload. So I may not get too much exposure to the Saints. I do want to mention their tight end situation. Jared Cook is questionable with a groin. Looks like he might be out. If he is, the backup most likely to step up is Adam Troutman. He's only 2.5 on DraftKings, so minimum price. If you want to save some money there, you could go there in a GPP. All right, Shane, game number 3, we've got Arizona traveling to Carolina. And Arizona, the 3-point road favorites on BetUS, over under of 51. Carolina coming off that first win for Coach Rule, 21-16 over the Chargers. So another game with a total just over 50. Anyone you like here?
Yeah, I think on the Arizona side, I'm not a big Kyler Murray guy. I was off him last week, and he had just an average game. He still put up production despite those 3 interceptions. But I actually do like Kyler Murray going on the road. He should have to throw quite a bit, and this should be a pretty fast-paced game. Good spot, fairly high over under here in a fairly easy matchup. A lot of people haven't had to throw that much against Carolina because they've just run the ball on them so much and they've gotten such a big lead. But I think Carolina at home could score a little bit on the Arizona defense and actually cause this to be a little bit of a shootout. And I like Kyler Murray in this game because he's not going to be under that much pressure from Carolina. I think that they should be very solid in terms of pass blocking here. and give him a lot of time. The only thing that makes me a little nervous is DeAndre Hopkins popped up on the injury report with an ankle injury, and he didn't practice here on Thursday. So if DeAndre Hopkins is a full go and playing, I like stacking Hopkins with Kyler Murray in this matchup. If Hopkins is out, then I might be a little more nervous on that. And then you can also take a look at Kenyon Drake. Obviously this is his best matchup he's had all year, and they might rely on that run game a little bit here and exploit that matchup. And Kenyon Drake is kind of due for a breakout as well. Although when I've watched him, he hasn't looked extremely explosive. He's looked okay, but I haven't been that impressed when I've actually watched him play. So that's my only thing about Kenyon Drake. But he is pretty talented, and he's got an easy matchup here. And then on the Carolina side, I'm liking Mike Davis again. I was really high on Mike Davis last week, and he performed well at a low price. Even with his price up a little bit, he's pretty much their bell cow for Carolina. And it's kind of a neutral matchup. Arizona's definitely not an easy matchup, but they're not dominant against the run. And even if they stop him in the run game, Mike Davis gets a ton of work in the passing game. So I feel like if they can keep this game close, Mike Davis should be a big part of that. He's going to get the red zone work, the goal line work. He gets the passing work. He's pretty much, like I called him last week, the poor man's Christian McCaffrey, and you get him at a cheap price here. So I like him. And then the other guy I like for Carolina that I think is due for a big blow up here is DJ Moore, the wide receiver here. I know that, Anderson's done well for him, the deep threat there, Robbie Anderson, but I think DJ Moore is due for a big game. And this is a great matchup. He's projected to be mostly on Dre Kirkpatrick. So whether he's on Kirkpatrick or Patrick Peterson, I think DJ Moore, I don't think they're going to be able to cover him. I think he's going to absolutely be able to burn them. And I can see him, he might be a little reliant on the run after the catch. Maybe Bridgewater will actually take a few deep shots. I just think it's a great matchup against these corners in a game where they're going to have to throw the ball and score a lot to keep up with this high-powered Arizona offense. So I like DJ Moore, and he's still reasonably priced on DraftKings, for example. He's all the way down at 5,600. I think that's way too cheap, and I think he's due for a blow-up and a great matchup and great game environment here. So those are the main guys I'm looking at in this game, and I do like this game, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, that's big news with Hopkins for Arizona, so we'll check on the injury report as we head through the weekend. I'm looking at Drake a little bit more than usual. I don't know if I've played him yet this season, actually. Just looking at some of the past performances here, we saw what Josh Jacobs did in week 1 against Carolina, and then the Tampa Bay running backs had a lot of success in week 2. And then last week it was Eckler, catching 11 balls for 84. So running backs have been successful against Carolina in different ways. So I'm interested in Drake. He's got good price on DraftKings. Problem is he hasn't caught too many balls, so I think the focus would be more on what he can do rushing the ball. We've got Chase Edmonds there, sort of interfering with his touches in terms of the receptions. But I like Drake there. And then with Carolina, I just don't quite trust that passing game yet. I do like your game script that if they're trailing, they're going to have to throw. I'm a little bit nervous about playing anybody from that side. I do kind of like the home run upside of Robbie Anderson. But if you're feeling that strongly about it as we get into Sunday, then maybe I'll get some DJ Moore in my lineups as well. All right, game 4, Shane. The Jaguars are going to be very rested after playing last Thursday night. They're going to travel to play Cincinnati. Jags are 1-2. Bengals coming off that tie against Philly. They're 0-2-1. And Bengals are the home favorites by 3. Over under 49. And let me start us off on this one because I'm interested in the rushing games on both sides here. The way to attack Cincinnati is certainly on the ground. They're giving up 182 yards per game. And so I'm looking at James Robinson. Last week he showed great versatility against Miami, 11 carries for 46 and 2 scores. He caught 6 balls for 83. He's 6,500 on DraftKings, so I like him quite a bit here. Again, with that extra rest, I love that setup for a running back. And then on the other side, we talked before that Thursday night game about the running backs against Jacksonville and their receptions, and that was a huge edge for us. We were all over Myles Gaskin, and he caught 5 for 29 against the Jaguars. So I'm looking at Mixon and Gio Bernard. Um, Mixon, he's sort of underwhelmed so far, and he doesn't get as many receptions as Gio Bernard. Mixon had 2 catches last week. He's had 7 on the year. Gio had 3 catches last year. He's had 12 on the year. So I kind of wanted to, look at Gio Bernard as a cheap guy here, especially on DraftKings PPR. But he's 4,400. Mixon's 5,800. So they're pretty close in price. So I'm not quite as excited about playing either one of those guys, but I do really like James Robinson on the other side. So what are your thoughts on the running backs here and the rest of this matchup?
I think James Robinson's going to get quite a bit of ownership. And his price has went up though since he had that huge breakout performance, and he did look great in that game. I just don't really like him, going on the road here. I don't like the fact that, overall the Jacksonville offense is pretty bad. And I think that he did play well, but it was kind of a perfect scenario for him in that game against Miami. He scored all the touchdowns. He got all the garbage time production in the passing game. So I don't see a repeat of that, and I'm not willing to pay this slightly elevated price because there's guys that I can get to at a very similar price that I like, that I think are in a lot better situation in terms of the offense and the matchup that I like. Obviously, Cincinnati's a pretty good matchup here, but I don't think they're just completely I don't think Jacksonville is just going to be able to completely dominate them. So I'm not really on anyone on the Jacksonville side, but I completely understand. I mean, this guy is a star in the making. I just don't think he's going to have a repeat performance, and I feel like it's chasing that performance on that Thursday night a little bit for this particular player. But we'll see. He's definitely talented. So, but I'm not really in love with it. On the Cincinnati side, I love Tyler Boyd here. He's going up against DJ Hayden in the slot. Tyler Boyd's just been absolutely just, uncoverable pretty much. And Joe Burrow's throwing a lot. And I think that's one of the best ways to attack the Jacksonville defense. The Cincinnati offensive line is not very good. That's why Joe Mixon hasn't really been able to get it going in the running game. And Jacksonville's pretty decent at stopping the run. They're pretty physical up front. So I think you got to attack them in the passing game. So I like Joe Burrow for GPPs. I think that, he's priced up a little bit, but I think Joe Burrow has a pretty high upside here. And he's got a lot of young, good weapons here. I know T. Higgins kind of popped off last week, but I just really like the matchup for Tyler Boyd. And in that $6,000 price range, I think Tyler Boyd is still way underpriced for an elite matchup and fairly high over/under in a at-home favored with a really talented young quarterback that throws to him. I love Tyler Boyd here at $6,000. So that's the main guy that I like here for Cincinnati. I can't really get to the Cincinnati running back just because the blocking has been horrible. I think Jacksonville can stop them. And I don't trust Jacksonville's offense of any player, even though James Robinson looks great. I don't trust him. So that's kind of where I'm at with this game.
All right. Yeah, I support the Boyd play as well. So let's transition to the next one. We've got the Browns traveling to Texas to play the Cowboys. Browns 2-1, Cowboys 1-2. 56 here on the over/under on BetUS. Cowboys favored by 4.5. So certainly looking like some points here. Where are you looking for the fantasy production to come from?
The thing I don't like about this game, I feel like I would definitely bet the under. I feel like 56 is way too high. I mean, that's near the over/under that was,
the Browns
big
are
game
playing,
last
right?
week. Yeah, because the Browns are playing.
This game.
Yeah, the Browns are involved, exactly. And the Browns the Browns have a great run blocking scheme. They have great running backs. Kareem Hunt might be out injured, though, so we have to check and see if Kareem Hunt's even going to play this week. And if Kareem Hunt's out, that kind of makes Nick Chubb kind of chalky. But Dallas is pretty stout against the run. They're decent enough to contain you. And if you want to attack Dallas, it's typically through the passing game. But can you really trust Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham, who doesn't seem to be that great right now either, and Jarvis Landry, he seems to be still injured. So the problem is that I don't know Nick Chubb. I normally love him, but I don't like the matchup against Dallas. I think they're pretty decent. Dallas is a pretty big favorite here, so it's not a great game script either for Nick Chubb. So I feel like this game is going to be a little bit slower pace compared to that Dallas-Seattle game last week, and a lot more running and clock control, ball time of possession, ball control, and it's going to make it go the under. And I don't think you're going to get elite upside fantasy level production here. So that's why I'm not really loving this game. So I think you can take a look at Nick Chubb because he's super talented, and if Kareem Hunt's out, he's going to get all the workload. And I think even though Dallas has been decent, Cleveland's pretty good at run blocking, and Nick Chubb is an elite back. So that's the one guy I would look at for Cleveland, but he's not among my top choices for running backs. And then on the Dallas side, I like CeeDee Lamb in this game because I think that I would rather go against the slot and attack the middle of the field against Cleveland's pass defense than try to go against, their outside corners. I think are pretty good with, Ward out there. So I feel like CeeDee Lamb would be due for a pretty big game here, and he's still in that $5,000 range, $5,600 to $5,400 range. So CeeDee Lamb is a guy that I like in the matchup here. Someone's got to score for Dallas. It's just a matter of figuring out what matchup you like, because I don't think the Cleveland defense is that bad. I think they're pretty competitive. And the way this over-under is in the total for Dallas, you would think that the Cleveland is one of the worst defenses in the league. But I just don't think this game is going to go the way Vegas thinks it's going to go. So that's what I'm not that interested in it. Are you thinking kind of the same thing here, or do you have some really good plays you like here?
Well, there's two plays that I like, but I do agree with you that if Cleveland can have this game go as planned, then it will go under, because Stefanski wants to run the ball, and they certainly don't want to see the Cowboys going up and down the field. So they're going to try and manage the clock, run it, and keep it lower scoring. So Chubb certainly in play, but also not my favorite. I am interested in Jarvis Landry, though. I know he hasn't done too much here, but if you look at what Lockett just did with the Cowboys in the slot, and Ridley, I mean, they just gashed him. So maybe this is time for somebody in that Cleveland passing game to finally wake up. So I'm going to have some exposure to Jarvis Landry. And then on the Cowboys side, you mentioned sort of attacking towards the middle of the field, and it usually is a solid approach here in recent last couple of years to attack Cleveland with your tight end. We saw what Mark Andrews did in the opener, a couple touchdowns, and then we saw what Cincinnati did with Uzama and Sample catching all those balls. So I like Dalton Schultz here at 4.3 on DraftKings. He's right in that same price range as TJ Hawkinson. So those guys are very attractive to me as tight ends.
Nice value play there, then. That's good.
Excellent. All right, let's go to another high total game. The Vikings and the Texans, both 0-3. This one's going to be played in Houston. The Texans are 4.5-point favorites at home with an over-under of 54.5. Now, with this higher total, any interest in this one?
Yeah, I really love this game. I think that both the defenses are kind of suspect. Both offenses have some really talented players, some skilled position players there, good scheme. So definitely like this one. This is the thing I love about the Houston Texans is they've had just an absolute brutal matchup, this year. I mean, if you look at it, I don't know who was, the NFL apparently just hated the Houston Texans this year or something, because to start up against Kansas City and then Baltimore and then have to go to Pittsburgh, I mean, I couldn't think of much more of a difficult schedule than that in the AFC, especially. Those are probably the top three teams in the AFC. So that's how they've started. So, and they've done okay. They've put up some production against those teams. But the fact that now they have a great matchup against Minnesota at home, and they're desperate for a win, you got to love Houston here. All right. So I think that they have an improved offensive line. I think their offense is great. So I love Deshaun Watson here. This is setting up great for a Deshaun Watson game here in one of his ceiling games. And I think that he can outscore some of the higher price quarterbacks, but be it like that more mid-tier price, and probably be a little bit lower ownership here. I mean, I think he's going to warrant some ownership, but there's so many other high-priced quarterbacks that people are going to be on. So got to love Deshaun Watson here. And then I like pairing him with Will Fuller. I feel like Will Fuller has a great matchup here. I don't think they have anyone in their secondary that can keep up with him. I think he's the number one wide receiver here. I mean, they have other targets as well. Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, those guys are pretty solid, but I love Will Fuller here. And then I also love David Johnson. His price over on DK is $5,600. I mean, he's too cheap on both sites. So David Johnson in a great matchup here. They're going to run him. He's going to get pass down block. He gets goal line work. He gets a little everything. And David Johnson looks great. I was pretty much on him all off season, really high on him the whole season. And I talked about how Bill O'Brien is going to be determined to prove that he made the right trade with that. And the guy's also producing, and they're finally in a good matchup. So I really can't blame this Houston team for being 0-3. I think that's the most difficult schedule that I've ever seen to start the year. And, I think all those three teams are really good teams. So I think Houston is due for a big blow up here. The nice thing is Minnesota has some talented players on the other side. Dalvin Cook's looking really good. He's looking elite level right here. Their run blocking and their scheme's good. So although their passing game's not great, their run game is just dominant and elite here. So you got to like Dalvin Cook, and he's a guy that's probably worth paying up for. I'd rather pay up for him than Alvin Kamara all day. He's going to get the production. He's going to get pass down work, and he's just as a runner, he's looking real good. And Houston is kind of a subpar matchup against the run here that you can run against him, and then you can go right back to the well here. This is going to feel a little bit chasey, even though that's not a word, but it's going to feel like you're chasing it a little bit. Is Justin Jefferson? If Justin Jefferson is going to be their solid in coverage this year, shutting down pretty good wide receivers. And Adam Thielen hasn't looked great on the outside, but Justin Jefferson is an ascending player. Obviously, he had that huge blow-up game, and he's in the slot against Vernon Hargreaves. He'll get a lot of coverage there, and that's an elite level matchup in terms of being able to produce here. And most likely they could be down in this game if Houston's going to blow up like I'm predicting here. So you could run it back with Justin Jefferson in the $5,000 range as a cheap guy, or you can run it back with Dalvin Cook, or maybe both. You can do a complete game stack here. But yeah, out of all games to stack, this is the game by far that I love the most for game stacking.
Yeah, I like your breakdown here. I'm going to stack Deshaun with Will Fuller in a bunch of lineups. I also like David Johnson and Dalvin Cook coming back. The Texans giving up 188 yards on average. So just terrific matchups there. So giddy up. Let's get a bunch of exposure to this game and keep cruising along.
Nice.
Okay, the next 1:00 game is another high total. It's 54 as Seattle is traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Seattle's a 6.5-point favorite on the road, undefeated at 3-0. Miami 1-2. And man, Seattle, haven't they been in some high-scoring games here? 38-25 with Atlanta, 35-30 with New England, and 38-31 with Dallas. So certainly makes sense that you've got that total there. Miami's defense is not strong. In fact, they are weak. Lots of exciting potential here. We do have some injury news, of course, with Seattle. Carson questionable, and Carlos Hyde, in fact, is questionable too. So we'll have to wait until Sunday to really make our decision there with the backfield. But with another mid-50s total here, are you interested in this one?
Yeah, I think this is a great game. I mean, the only concern here is that Seattle goes down there and blows them out. And they are 6-point favorites, but the fact that they're on the road, having to go into Miami, it's a little bit more tougher environment. So I don't know if they're just going to completely blow them out. And Seattle's defense has looked really bad, so Miami should be able to keep up and score with them there. So it's just I still see Seattle controlling this game and getting a pretty good lead. And in the second half, that I always bring up, let Russ cook. I don't think Russ is going to have to cook in this one. Where last week against Dallas, the way they always come back, he had to keep cooking. And when he was going against Atlanta, and you got Matt Ryan and those guys on the other side, you had to let Russ cook. I don't think you're going to have to let him cook, and I think that they can run the ball and really exploit the matchup against the Miami run defense here. So whether it's Carson or Hyde, we're going to have to really keep our eye on those injury reports so we can project this. This is one of the early games. So because I am interested in Seattle's running game here, if you can get Carlos Hyde at a value price or something, that's something I might be interested in, especially if Chris Carson's out, because I could see this being a big game where they go back to old school football and kind of protect Russell Wilson a little bit. There's no need for him to sling the ball around and expose himself in a game that they should win easily. But we'll see. On the other side, you got Fitzpatrick, who's pretty scrappy quarterback, and he's a nice GPP play, I think, over on Draftkings at 5,400, just because Seattle doesn't have much of a pass rush, and Fitzpatrick is not afraid to sling the ball around. Even if he throws picks, he doesn't really care. If you feel like you like him because he had a little bit more bigger rest because they played on the Thursday night game last week, And if you feel like Devontae Parker is back healthy, he's a guy I could look at as well. He was kind of laboring with that hamstring the other night, but if he's completely back a little more healthy and feeling better where he can open up a little bit, they have a lot of weapons there with Gesicki and Preston Williams and Parker. So you could do some game stacks here or some Miami stacks, and and on the Seattle side, obviously I like Russell Wilson. I'm just a little afraid about the amount of volume he might get here. But even if he doesn't get that much volume, he can still produce. It's just he's very expensive. And then Tyler Lockett's in a great slot, great position again. It seems like it's kind of a broken record, but his prices went up a little bit. But the fact that he's in that slot coverage, he's mostly lined up in the slot where Miami's weak. He's projected to go up against Jamal Perry in coverage, who's really low rated for coverage. He probably avoids, for the most part, Xavier Howard, who's their best cornerback. And DK Metcalf will probably be up against Howard, which makes me feel like DK Metcalf's upside is limited a little bit. I know that DK Metcalf has shown that he's sort of matchup proof, but I think Xavier Howard's big and physical enough to at least contain him. Where Tyler Lockett, I don't think they have anyone that can contain him. So that's why I like Tyler Lockett here. So yeah, this is a very interesting game. I'm a little bit worried about the blowout, but I probably will have a little bit of exposure here to a couple of these guys, most likely.
Yeah, I agree. Russell is a little scary just because of his price tag with the potential blowout. You figure they're going to try and run it because they can. So it'll just come down to the news. I also, if Carson's out, Hyde's certainly in play, but you can also look at Travis Homer. I do like him on DraftKings due to the PPR format. So you could use him in GPPs. And yes, I also like the idea of stacking Fitzpatrick and Parker in GPPs on DraftKings. Seattle's giving up 439 yards passing per game. And Fitzpatrick can sling it. He might also mix in an interception or two, but that won't hold down him from paying off his value if he can stay healthy and, connect with those receivers and have Parker be healthy. All right, Shane, next game, we're kind of come back down to earth with these totals. It's 43 as the Chargers travel to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers 7-point home favorites. They're 2-1. Chargers 1-2. My only interest here, really, I'll just jump right to it, is the Tampa defense. They're a nice price on DraftKings at 3.4. They've been absolutely awesome against the rush, only giving up 70 yards a game on the ground and passing only 265. So total of 335 per game. I know, Herbert is off to a good start here, but, with all these high total games we've already talked about it, at some point we've got to pick a defense. What do you think about the Buccaneers defense?
Yeah, the Buccaneers defense, I do like them. And I was kind of in the same page here that I'm not going to be getting a lot of exposure to this game, just the way it's set up. Tampa Bay's defense is pretty affordable. On DK at 3,400. They're up in the high tier on FanDuel 4,700. But yeah, I like Tampa Bay's defense. They're playing at an elite level. They're going to be going up against a rookie quarterback who's got to travel on the road here. The Tampa Bay has the secondary to match up with the likes of Keenan Allen and those type of guys, and they have a good pass rush, and they can definitely cause some issues for the Chargers offensive line that's not really that great. So I do like the Tampa Bay defense here at home against a rookie. 7-point, big 7-point favorites. It's a little hard to figure out the Tampa Bay running game. I think that's would be a decent spot to attack here. They have a great running scheme, and Tom Brady's kind of like the general. He doesn't really have to pass that much right now. But really, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Ronald Jones, or is it going to be Leonard Fournette week? And I don't really want to play that guessing game because I think both of them are going to produce probably in split carries in this game. And then the other guy who's a super deep sleeper is for Tampa Bay. I'm looking at Justin Watson. He's near minimum price. And the reason why I'm looking at him, Chris Godwin's out with a hamstring injury, and Scotty Miller hasn't been practicing and has been out as well. If both of those starting receivers are out, then that leaves them only with pretty much Mike Evans. Justin Watson is the next man up, and he will get quite a bit of targets and quite a bit of routes run here in this game and a lot of snaps. So, and they can, pass a little bit against, the Chargers are pretty tough pass defense here, but they did lose Chris Harris. They're one of their star corners, so they're a little bit vulnerable in the slot, and Justin Watson is a big slot type guy who showed a little bit of upside when he played last year when they had all the injuries. And he's super cheap. He's near minimal price on both sides. So that's a guy I'll keep my eye on, assuming that Godwin and Scotty Miller is out. Someone's got to catch the ball. I think they're going to at least pass a little bit. I don't think they're just going to 100% run in this game. So, and he's got Tom Brady. So yeah, so I think that could be something good if Tampa Bay is going to be a big favorite here. That could be a good spot it wouldn't be hard for him to beat the value at 3,400 on DraftKings and 46 on FanDuel. It wouldn't take much at all. So
yeah, nice call there. For GPPs, and we've got McCoy in the backfield too, catching passes. So I'm going to stay away from that Tampa backfield for now. All right, Shane, the last 1 o'clock game is another lower total. It's 45.5 as the Ravens are traveling to Washington to take on the football team there. Ravens 13-point favorites. So I'll start the same way here. I'm interested in the Ravens defense potentially at 4,000 on DraftKings, a little bit more expensive than the Buccaneers, but are they an option for you?
Yeah, I like Baltimore's defense against, a banged up Washington team and a very erratic Dwayne Haskins here. It's hard to trust his accuracy and his poise under pressure, and they don't really have that much of a dominant running game to take the pressure off him. And I like this is kind of like the angry Baltimore narrative. I'm a big fan of Baltimore. They were a huge letdown on Monday Night Football.
Yes.
Kansas City absolutely annihilated them in pretty much every aspect of the game. But it doesn't mean Baltimore all of a sudden is a horrible team. They're still a really good team. It's just Kansas City executed on all levels, had a way better game plan, way better coaching and execution. So I like the angry Baltimore narrative here. They go into Washington and just completely just annihilate this team. And I think that with the pressure they put on an offense, and Washington has some offensive line injuries. Most of their best offensive lines are injured or questionable. So their offensive line is weak. They have a quarterback who's erratic, and they don't really have that many weapons outside of Terry McLaurin, who's a player that I really like. I just don't like him in this matchup. So I love Baltimore's defense, and I think some people may not want to pay up that much for it because there's a lot of other defenses you can pay a little less and save a little money that are really good defenses. But I think Baltimore has the highest upside, and that's what we're going for, similar to the Indianapolis Colts last week had the highest upside, and that produced for us. So that's why I'm going to be on Baltimore's defense, because I feel like they have the highest upside here to really blow up with the angry Baltimore defense narrative here.
Yeah, I like that narrative. They should be angry after that performance. Kansas City just did whatever they wanted. I do want to mention the Ravens backfield. It's a situation I want to avoid. And let me give you the carries for the three guys here. It's a three-headed monster. Ingram's carry totals 10, 9, and 7. J.K. Dobbins 7, 2, and 1. Gus Edwards 4, 10, and 4. So I'm just going to avoid the backfield, probably look at that defense, and otherwise avoid this game.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the two backups, Mark Ingram's technically the starter, but J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards look way better than Ingram.
Right,
they both
exactly.
look really good.
Yep.
If just one of those guys would get like 60, 70% of the work, they would be like, RB1s. But since, they're Baltimore's looking to play real life football, not fantasy football. So they don't really care if they just split and keep all these guys fresh for a playoff.
Exactly.
Because obviously, and just, so there's really no sense of trying to figure out which guy is going to be the guy this week. I think Lamar Jackson is kind of contrarian if you pay up for him, because he's been kind of bad lately, and he could have a bounce back game here against a pretty, Washington doesn't have Chase Young, their star defensive end, so he's out injured. They're a little bit banged up there. So Lamar Jackson could have one of those big ceiling games here, and he's actually going to be kind of low owned to pay up for him. He's kind of contrarian. So I like him kind of in tournaments. And then I like Mark Andrews. He should be able to have a bounce back game against a pretty good matchup here. And, I think he's worth paying up for as well. There are some good value tight ends, but I think it's contrarian to pay up for Mark Andrews after a disappointing game. He could have a big bounce back game here as well.
Okay. All right. Well, before we get to the 4 o'clock games, just want to take a quick moment and hear a word from our partners at BetUS.
Wake up, sports bettors. Sports are in high gear at BetUS.com, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line at BetUS. Earn bragging rights over your friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action. But don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sportsbook with over 25 trusted years in the industry, BetUS. You need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity, but more importantly, you need a sportsbook that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, basketball, MMA, golf, horse racing, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Sign up now with promo code CoachTalk for 125% sign-up bonus up to $2,000. The best in the biz. Now you have the best book in the business with the best DFS provider in the business, Coach Talk. Create your account to make point spread bets, futures bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook is as committed to their members as BetUS. Sign up now and get in on the winning side of the ball.
All right, welcome back. Thank you so much from our partners at BetUS, that terrific offer. Shane, we've got 4 o'clock games to dissect here. Giants 0-3, traveling to take on the Rams 2-1, coming off that heartbreaking loss to Buffalo. They are the 13-point home favorites, though. Over under 48. Giants are averaging 12.7 points per game on offense. They're an absolute mess. So the Rams are another defense in play for me. But any targets for you in this matchup?
You know, I kind of like Darrell Henderson for the Rams here. I mean, if you look at this, he's a huge favorite at home against, a middle-of-the-road run defense. Giants are decent against the run, but Henderson has been really good. The blocking for the Rams, the run blocking has been graded really high. Their schemes are great, and Henderson seems to really finally be fitting in this scheme, and it's pretty much his backfield right now. For him to go into Buffalo and have 114 rushing yards and a touchdown last week was pretty impressive there. He's not getting much work in the pass down, but you never know. He might get some passing work here as well. So it's a good game script for Henderson, and he's still fairly cheap. So I think he's a good guy to take advantage of why he's still mid price there before it goes way up in a pretty good situation. And then I think you can take a look at Cooper Kupp. I was on him last week, and he had a blow-up spot. I think he was only 3% ownership. I played him in Draftkings. And I kind of projected that as a big blow-up spot. I think he's worth paying up for. The slot corner, Darnay Holmes for the Giants is really bad, really low rated. So they will most likely be targeting Cooper Kupp early and often here, and he could have another blow-up game here. They do have a really high total, over 30-point implied total for the Rams. So again, this is a lot of scoring on the Rams side you can take advantage of. And then also, like you, I really like the Rams defense. Rams defense is going to be probably the highest owned defense is the only issue, but they are looking really good against Daniel Jones, who is prone to making mistakes. And their defensive line should be able to dominate against the Giants' shaky offensive line here and cause a lot of issues for Daniel Jones. And, obviously the Giants have lost a lot of their good skill position players. So it's a great matchup here for the Rams. I still feel I'm kind of leaning between them two, but I still feel like Baltimore might have a little higher upside here, even though they have to go on the road. They're not really traveling that far. It's basically a short bus ride for Baltimore to go to the DC, right? So I think that I'm still liking Baltimore, but if I need to save a couple $100 and go down, I will go to the Rams defense because I think they're one of the best plays here as well.
Yeah, I think I lean towards the Ravens D as well. But certainly the Rams are in play. And just want to follow up with a couple stats. Henderson had 21 touches last week, and there were some pretty sizable holes. I got to see most of that game, and so he really took advantage of it, and he is getting the touches. So you could look there. I also like Cooper Kupp. We saw what Deontay Johnson did in that same spot against the Giants. So I like Kupp. Certainly going to avoid that Giants backfield. That's an absolute mess. If you had to play somebody for the Giants, you could go with Evan Ingram. He has 20 targets on the season, 11 receptions, and the Rams have given up some fantasy points to opposing tight ends. But probably won't get too much exposure to this game. Cooper Kupp, probably my favorite play overall. All right, the next game, man, what a matchup. We got the Patriots traveling to Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs have short rest after that win against Baltimore, but they got to be feeling good after that dominant performance, and they are 7-point favorites on BetUS. Over under of 53. We've got a real crowded backfield now with the Patriots, as James White looks like he'll be back. Damian Harris looks like he'll be back. So it's not going to be the Burkhead show probably all by himself like it was against the Raiders.
That was like a once a millennial call that you actually predicted the correct New England Patriots running back to go off at low ownership, because that's almost impossible to do. That only happens like once every 1,000 years. So congratulations there.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was excited. We got him in our FanDuel GPP, and we had him at less than 1% on FanDuel, and he absolutely went off. What was it? Almost 50 yards receiving and rushing, got in the end zone 3 times. That was terrific. So, but with all those running backs, I'm not going to use any of them this week. So there will be no millennial call on the Patriots backfield this week. But what are your thoughts on the rest of this matchup?
This is a really tough one because, you'd like to have exposure to a 53 over under, but you feel like both defenses are solid and they're going to kind of limit the massive upside of each player on each side. So, because Cam Newton's really good, but I think if you looked at how good Kansas City's defense played against not really loving Cam Newton here and his weapons, because I feel like Kansas City has the players to take him out of the game a little bit and limit his upside. And then on the Kansas City side, the same thing. I think New England, although their defense isn't as dominant as they were last year, they still have a great secondary. I think they have some guys that can match up against these skill players. And I know it's hard to cover all these guys, so someone's going to get theirs for Kansas City, but it's really hard to project, which players Bill Belichick's trying to take out of it and where the production will go. And I feel like, Mahomes is probably a decent play, but I don't know if he's my top choice to pay up for a quarterback. And I just feel like, it's going to be a moderately high scoring game, but I don't think it's going to really smash the over here. And it's a little hard to project where the production is going to come from, because I think both coaches are really good at scheming and really good at game planning and really good at finding the projected matchups and taking away some of the best players. So for them, all those reasons, I'm not loving this game for DFS, even though it's a pretty high over under. It's a really tricky one. Did you crack the code on this one and you know exactly which players are going to be the best plays?
I won't go that far in terms of a prediction. I agree with you. It's a lot harder to predict in this matchup. Because of all the weapons, because of the scheming that you mentioned. Tyreek Hill is in play for me, working out of the slot. We saw Renfro have success against the Patriots last week. And then Mecole Hardman, if they're going to drop some plays for him and unleash him and send him deep multiple times, then I do like his price at 4.3, because, if you try to hold down Kelsey and Hill, there's room for him to slip through the cracks and beat you over the top. So that's one guy that I might look at to get some exposure to this game. But for the most part, I'm going to avoid it because there are so many different weapons. All right, Shane, one more game to go here. It is a 4:25 kickoff. The undefeated Buffalo Bills, 3-0, traveling to Vegas to take on the Raiders, 2-1, 52.5. Over under on BetUS. The Bills are 3-point road favorites. Who do you like in this one?
I'm not. There's a few players that I like here. Definitely not stacking this game, but I think on the Buffalo side, I don't know if I love Josh Allen here. I think that he's due for a little bit of regression. He's obviously had like an MVP caliber type season so far, but I don't know if he's going to be my favorite quarterback here. I would say one of his targets I like is Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, I think, in a matchup against a pretty weak Raiders secondary, should be able to probably, catch a couple deep balls and get some production here. I know John Brown was banged up this week, but John Brown probably is still going to play. But I think Stephon Diggs could definitely have a big game against them. It's just Stephon Diggs is pretty expensive. He's near that $7,000 range on FanDuel and Draftkings, so I don't know if he's worth paying up that much for or not. On the Raiders side, I like Darren Waller. Buffalo's pretty weak against the tight end here, and I think Darren Waller can expose that matchup. And he's pretty cheap on DraftKings at $5,200 and kind of mid-high on FanDuel $6,700. So I think Darren Waller in a bounce back spot here after getting shut down by the Patriots, which we talked about how that would probably happen last week, how they would game plan to stop him. I don't think it's going to be the same thing with Buffalo, and I think he can expose Buffalo's weakness of covering athletic tight ends here. And I actually do like Josh Jacobs. I think Josh Jacobs is kind of sneaky in this game. He's had some pretty tough matchups. He hasn't really went off the last couple of weeks here, but I think Buffalo is perceived as a dominant run defense, similar to when I was talking about Chicago against Jonathan Taylor. But if you look deeper into the stats and the ratings so far this year, Buffalo has not been dominant against the run. They're probably a little bit better against the pass than they are the run. So I think the Raiders with their big offensive line can run the ball, and I think that's going to be the game plan. I don't think you want Derek Carr to be passing a lot against these guys, against their secondary for Buffalo. So I think the game plan is to just pound Josh Jacobs until he has a breakthrough. And I think this could be a good, nice blow-up spot for Josh Jacobs. And I don't think that many people are going to be paying up for him because they're so focused on those other high-priced guys like Alvin Kamara, for example. So that's why I like Josh Jacobs. It's a nice sneaky play for him to have a blow-up game here after a couple disappointing games.
Yeah, I like the running backs in this one too. I like Jacobs. We saw what Darrell Henderson did to the Bills. So 6.8, decent price on DraftKings. I'll run him out there for some of my teams. And then on the Bills side, I agree. I'm not going to go with Allen. Las Vegas only allowing 248 yards passing per game. I am looking more at Devin Singletary. He can fill that Burkhead role and get 3 scores against the Raiders like Burkhead did. They use him to run it and catch it. And a couple of those goal line plays last week for the Bills, Allen ran the option with Singletary and he decided to keep it at the last second. If he had pitched it to Singletary, he could have scored once or twice. And maybe this week they'll call on Devin to finish it off on a couple drives. So he's in play for me.
I probably feel better about Singletary if Zach Moss is out. Zach Moss is still questionable as of right now. He's trending towards maybe being able to play. We'll see if he gets a full practice or even another limited practice Friday. I think he might play, and he's a pretty physical back. He's more their goal line, short yardage type back. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. And then me with Devin Singletary, I always say, who's the number one red zone rusher for the Buffalo Bills? Josh Allen, right? So that always bothers me that you can't play Devin Singletary and go, dang, Josh Allen just vultured the touchdown when that's going to happen almost every single time. Yeah. So you need Devin Singletary to break like a 25 to 30 yard rushing or screen and take it to the house to get the touchdown. That seems to be the thing. And if that happens, he could actually absolutely blow up and be a great DFS play. It's just it feels like you need that to happen because he did have a few opportunities down there and he got stuffed at the goal line last week. So but yeah, he did look explosive. He looked very quick and explosive. So I think if Zach Moss is out, then you feel even better about that play. And hopefully he can actually get in the end zone and Josh Allen doesn't vulture him again.
Absolutely. So we'll be following that news on Moss and building those lineups here as we get ready for Sunday. We'd love to have you join us as a member so we can give you those FanDuel lineups and the coach's clipboard on DraftKings and the Yahoo hybrid lineup. So go to dfscoachtalk.com to pick up one of our memberships, and we'll get you right into our Discord. And if you join by Friday, we'll get you our NBA lineups on Friday, as well as our Major League Baseball lineups. We're getting another great day today in Major League Baseball, going to win 2 days in a row, and we've been terrific on NBA throughout the bubble. So love to have you join us. Please do hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you know when our podcasts post. Social media, you can follow us all on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. Like I said, you can follow Shane at DET Sports Shane. You can find me at Language Olympic, and you can find the coach, Joe Sarvadi, at JoeSarvadi. Charity of choice here at DFS Coach Talk, mambaon3.org. We want to thank our presenting sponsor one more time, BetUS, a terrific partner. Thank you so much to them. Use that promo code Coach Talk with your first deposit. Shane, any final words here for the main slate?
No, I think this is a great example of there's not a really chalky game or real obvious plays here, which creates a better edge for us as we dive a lot more into the matchups and use the eye test and hand build them. this actually is a better slate for us to gain an edge, even though we pretty much had an edge every single week. This is going to be even better for us because there's not real super obvious chalky plays here, and I like that. So we'll keep our eye on the news the next few days. But the way this slate is working out, it's actually looking like a great advantage for us.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Can't wait to finalize it. So thank you for all your hard work, Shane. Terrific as always. And on behalf of the entire DFS Coach Talk team, I am Andrew Hansen. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to tune in again tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.